Brothers Podcast, a Five Pillars of Mad Monolith production.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers, sisters, friends, and those foes of you out there. I pray you're all well, and welcome to another episode of the Blood Brothers Podcast with your host, Dilly Hussain.
And your co-host, Aki Hussain. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
There's a bit of a pause there, it took you a while.
I didn't think you were going to hand it over to me, to be honest. I thought you were just going to crack on.
I always hand it over to you.
Okay.
Anyway, today, it's a different episode. I'm telling you that now because number one, it's our first non-UK guest. Number two, this brother is a living legend. And if you don't know about this living legend, then you need to know about him, and now you know. And that is brother Firas Zahabi from Tristar Gym in Montreal. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother.
Brother Firas, how are you?
Pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
Is this your first visit to the UK?
No, I've been here a few times.
Would you ever consider moving here?
It's not impossible. I love it here. I do love it here.
Oh, wow.
We'll make dua for you to move here.
Inshallah.
And inshallah, you'll never have to make hijrah here either. No.
I hope not.
Aki had some questions for you to kick off this podcast. He's been dying to ask you some questions. Fire away.
Yeah. So look, people, fans of MMA, people who follow MMA always have these conversations amongst themselves, right? They always have these conversations, you know, who would win in this bout if so-and-so in their peak for this person. So I want to ask you, an expert in the game, right? So we'll start with some who are obviously still fighting, active champions and fighters, and some who have since retired, same divisions. And I want to hear what you think.
If you were a betting man, which I know you're not.
Yeah. But besides that, obviously, Dilly can't help himself coming from that angle for some reason. I don't know why.
It's just a line that follows.
But more so from the perspective of obviously being an expert in mixed martial arts. So, Rob Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. Who do you think is going to... They're going to fight at some point.
I'm going to be very biased because I've worked with Robert Whittaker over the earlier on in his career.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be very biased. I always choose the guys that I work with.
Yeah.
So I'll say Robert Whittaker.
There seems to be a bit of a lazy opinion about Rob Whittaker being a boring fighter. Yeah. And maybe because he's not as exciting or extravagant maybe in striking as some other fighters. Well, if you compare him directly with Israel Adesanya. But if you look at some of the people that he's fought and some of the people that he's beat, there's no one really besides Israel that he's not fought in his division. So you hold him in high regard, yeah?
Absolutely. I think when you're a champion, it's a bit different because you're always fighting the number one guy. You know, the number one contender, he beat number 8, he beat number 4, he beat number 3, he beat number 2, and now he gets a shot at number 1. But the number 1 guy is always fighting the number 2 guy. You know, the champion's always fighting the champion's fighting the number 1 ranked guy, right?
It's not easy, right? Is it?
So if you're champion after champion, it's because you're really good. And the number 1 guy, he got past he got past everybody else because he's really special.
Yeah.
So you're always fighting the special guy. So people think, oh, look, it's not so lopsided. Yeah, because you're fighting the number 1 guy. You know, you're fighting the guy who got past everybody else. So I think it's a bit unfair to say that because if you look at the names that he's really fought like really, really incredible, spectacular opponents. Yeah. And he's come out on top. So I think he's a very exciting fighter because when you saw him coming through the ranks, he was knocking out a lot of guys.
He was.
Rob Whittaker is...
So you give him a number 6, you give him a number 8 in his division, he's going to knock him out.
Yeah.
You know, the only guys who didn't get knocked out are the guys who were like number 1 they're like a hair less than him. So it's just, I think it's not a fair comparison.
And it's a national rivalry as well because Rob Whittaker is Australian himself and Israel's from New Zealand. So there's some national, there's some beef there as well. Yeah,
some rugby beef.
Yeah, exactly. So number 2, this one's interesting, right? Nate versus Nick at welterweight.
Nate Diaz versus Nick Diaz. Well, you got the whole
Blood Brothers.
You got the whole big brother dynamic. So
Yeah.
I think Nick takes it all the way. Why? He probably is beating the hell out of Nate 100,000 times as they were growing up. So all those beatings as they're fighting,
So it's psychological.
Yeah, it's gonna be like I lost this guy 100,000 times. You just don't believe you can win.
Yeah.
So I think Nick all the time.
It's not like going into the octagon with McNugget or anything like that.
He won't be able to get past that psychological barrier. His brother is just beating him down too many times.
Here's a fight I really would have loved to have seen, yeah? Matt Hughes versus Kamaru Usman, welterweight. Who do you reckon will have it?
Matt Hughes in his prime?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Matt Hughes as welterweight champion.
Listen, Matt Hughes has done a lot more than Kamaru has done, but that's not a fair comparison because Kamaru hasn't had the time yet.
Of course.
So I can't say that the jury's out, but for sure Matt Hughes has done a lot more. will Kamaru do that? Honestly, I'll be honest with you, I don't think so.
No?
I don't think he'll do what Matt Hughes did. Because what Matt Hughes did, okay, in his time, it was amazing. If we brought him in those skills, if we took him, freeze frame him from that time and bring him into our time, no, his skills would be past date. But in his time, he was ahead of the curve, right? Like everything else, things advance. Today, the 20-year-old kids that are just starting, they're better than the guys who were champion 10 years ago. Why? Well, they learned from the generations before. They found new shortcuts.
They've evolved.
We've had new innovations in the sport. We've figured out so many things. So the generations before are getting faster.
But you measure him according to his time.
According to his time, Matt Hughes is way better.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. What do you think about that performance? I know I'm going sidetracking there. What do you think of that performance from Tyron Woodley that night he lost his title to Usman?
Look, Usman beat him fair and square, man. Usman was a better fighter.
It was all over.
I think Tyrone could win that fight. I think there was a strategical error, strategical mistake that happens in fighting where you just don't know. You've never sparred with that guy. You've never wrestled with him. So you got to kind of just give an educated guess on how the fight should go, how the fight can go, and what I should do when it goes that way. And I think Woodley was surprised by the takedowns. And that he never recovered from those takedowns. He just kind of seemed like he was trying to figure out how to stop these takedowns. He didn't have a solution. And the thing is, Woodley's an excellent wrestler.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah.
The thing is, the hold that Kamaru was using might have surprised him. And if he had trained for those, let's say now the rematch, he'll train for those. Maybe we have a different story. So I think it's two elite guys. And when you have two elite guys, it comes down to strategy. His strategy wasn't right that night. It happens. He's going to reformulate. He's going to try again. And sometimes we see rematches go completely the other way. So that's the interesting thing about it.
But it was dominant though, right?
Very dominant.
Really dominant. I mean, it was relentless. I mean, it was
absolutely.
punching his stomach, stamping on the feet. It was all over.
It was all Kamaru. Absolutely. It was.
Okay, so next one. John Jones versus Stipe at heavyweight. So this is providing John Jones at some point in his life decides that maybe I should put on a few pounds and fight at heavyweight.
You know what? I've also trained with John quite a bit. Me and him used to actually be, back in the day, we used to be actually pretty close. So I'm always going to pick the guys I go way back with.
Yeah.
I picked John Jones, but even regardless, put that aside for now. I think he would beat Miocic. And I just think he's too creative. He's too seasoned, and he's just very smart in there. When he's in the octagon, he's a very intelligent fighter, John. He finds a way to win. Like, even though the fight sometimes might be close, he finds a way to win. He has a history of winning, and he's grown up in the wrestling, heavy wrestling training, heavy wrestling competition. He has over 300 wrestling matches.
Incredible.
That's what he told me once upon a time. And the thing is, how much you learned strategically. It's a different sport, but it's very related. You learn so much. I don't think Miocic has that kind of background in a boxing, or like he doesn't have that extensive experience that'll carry John through a fight like that.
But just to interject, we had a conversation in Abu Dhabi a couple of days ago, and I asked you whether you feel that Jones should be naturally fighting at heavy.
I think that John is bigger than the light heavyweights. I do. I feel like you can lose the same amount of weight. You could lose more weight, but lose the same amount of percentage. So if I weigh 100 pounds and I lose 5 pounds, I lost 5%. If I weigh 200 pounds and I lose 5 pounds, I lost 2.5%. So sometimes a bigger guy will squeeze into a division. Yes, he lost more weight, but it was the same percentage of weight, or very close to.
Sure.
So I think if they weighed them the next day, you'd see John Jones weighs a lot more than a lot of the guys he beat. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And of course, he has a reach advantage that's beyond even. It's a greater reach advantage than any of the heavyweights. So I do definitely think he can hold his own in heavyweight division. If he went in the heavyweight, he would do well.
So do you think, like, for example, Rumble Johnson and Gustafsson could have also fought at heavyweight?
Yeah, I believe so. I think you never know, but it could have hindered their career to go to light heavyweight, because maybe your body's naturally heavyweight, but you're squeezing it into light heavyweight. And we've seen Johnson do really well in round 1, then fade in round 2. Why?
Yeah.
He's in great shape. He's a supreme athlete. I mean, the guy's well conditioned, but you go through a very hard weight cut, it can affect you definitely in the fight the next day. So I think it would have been wise for him to at least try heavyweight. Maybe he feels better than ever. And we've seen that. Guy go from one weight class, go up a weight class, and have a phenomenal run. For instance, Robert Whittaker. I've trained Robert for fights. I've seen his weight cuts. They were one of the worst weight cuts I've ever seen. Like I always tell people, the worst weight cut I've ever seen was Kenny Florian. The second worst weight cut was Robert Whittaker. He was just torturing his body to make 170. Then he goes up to 185. Guess what? Becomes champion.
Yeah.
And he's a very talented kid. He would do really good in practice, not so well in the fight. Then when he changed weight class, all of a sudden, he's doing really good in practice and extremely well in the fight. So sometimes it's a blessing to go up.
Yeah. Would you say the same about Kelvin Gastelum then, from shifting from welterweight to middleweight?
Gastelum for sure. He's not the tallest guy, but he's very
Bulky
thick.
guy.
He's very thick naturally.
Yeah.
He's very a robust guy. Like he can handle himself. And
You know, Rumble Johnson competed at welterweight.
That's mad.
no, I was there. I was there. Believe me, I was there those days.
It's amazing.
I look at him today. It's
You gotta look at the
impossible.
pictures. You have to see the pictures.
I believe me. I've been in the same room with him when he I've seen the guy, both at at light heavyweight and at welterweight. I couldn't imagine when he was making welterweight. I couldn't imagine how he makes welterweight.
Mental. It's like you know the Captain America the movie, before he goes into the machine and becomes big. It's like the before and after of that. It's incredible. Okay, next one. Peak Cain Velasquez versus Buddy DC at heavyweight.
Buddy DC? Who's Buddy?
As in his buddy, his team.
Oh, his buddy.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier, yeah.
Sorry, that was so quick. That's a close one. I would say DC.
Yeah?
Even
Are we talking about pound for pound or heavyweight? Even heavyweight, I would pick DC.
talking
I
about-
like DC at heavyweight. I think DC does. It's more of a natural weight class for him.
For Daniel, okay. So there's a big fight coming up that's been, as far as I know, it's been arranged. So Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz.
Yeah, that's right.
For
November
the
2nd.
bad mother clucker belt
Yes, that's what I hear.
everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
Who do you think takes that?
That's a tough fight to call.
It's a hot fight.
I would call. It's a hard fight to call.
Nate.
No, I would go Masvidal.
I'm gonna go Jorge. Yeah, I'm gonna go Jorge.
Really?
I think he's on a tear at the moment, and I think he have the edge on him, and I think he's obviously at the moment he's had more experience in the octagon right now because he's been more active.
Has Masvidal has he done many championship rounds though?
It's not. I don't think it's gonna be a 5-round fight. I think it's gonna be a 3-round fight. And,
I think it's main event. It's main event. I think it's 5 rounds.
So it's probably gonna be 5 round then. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think he'll bank in 3 out of the 5. But the thing is, again, it's so up in the air. Who knows, man? Honestly, it's a tough one to
Nate's
call.
Nate as well. So
I wouldn't be. Look, it wouldn't shock me in the least if
Exactly.
Nate wins. It wouldn't shock me. But if I have to pick, I'll take Masvidal.
okay, Max Holloway in a rematch in lightweight with number 1 bullshit guy.
At lightweight. At featherweight, I would give it to Holloway because I think he'll survive first couple of rounds and he'll just put too much pressure. At lightweight, that's a really tough one to call. Honestly, it would be
He's a different man, isn't he, from that fight?
he's a different man, but because he lost to Poirier, and I feel like at 145 he towers over everybody, and his conditioning really comes into
He
play.
has an advantage.
At 155, he doesn't tower over them, and McGregor's beat him before. I think McGregor can edge him out. In a 3-rounder, I would pick McGregor. A 5-rounder would be even closer. Like, it'd be very hard for me to choose.
But in featherweight, it might be a different.
But it would definitely be a 5-rounder. It would either be a main event. I don't think McGregor would ever do anything other than a main event or a title fight.
Okay, so hot one in lightweight. Everyone's looking forward to it. It's the matchup that everyone's waiting for. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib.
That's a great fight. Listen, at this point in time, I have to pick Khabib. I just think Khabib is the best lightweight in history of UFC. Arguably one of the best pound for pound fighters in the history of UFC as well. Okay, and I think just positionally he'll beat Tony. I don't know if he'll finish Tony. I don't think he'll finish Tony, but positionally he'll beat him. He's cleaner with his positions. Tony will do a good job, in my opinion, of escaping, but fundamentally he'll have lost a few key positions, and that'll give Khabib the win.
And do you see it being a similar story to other Khabib fights where he will dominate and he will control?
Yes, but not as dominant.
Sure.
But yes.
Okay. Khabib versus GSP. At lightweight.
At lightweight, look, right now I don't think George will make lightweight anymore. Like, I think there was a time and place where he was willing to do it.
Yeah.
There was a time.
Let's say it was a
Now-
catch at 160 or something. I don't
160. Listen, of course I'm biased. Okay, there's no way I can get around
know.
that.
I don't think it's a bias issue, to be honest. I mean, I
I
understand
can't
why it
avoid
would
with
be.
being biased.
I understand
No,
why it
because
would be.
I grew up with George.
Yeah.
No. I'll be honest with you. Like,
Sounds
as honest as I
location.
can be without being like, you can't avoid being biased. I would say George would just his kicking ability and his striking ability would carry the day, in my opinion.
Okay.
His strikes would set up takedowns because the wrestling's going to be very comparable. Their grappling's going to be very comparable. But when it comes to the striking, especially when it comes to the kickboxing style combinations involving spinning kicks, side kicks, low kicks, high kicks, Superman punches, George is way ahead, in my opinion. Way, way ahead.
He's got a serious repertoire.
Khabib's more of a... Fundamentally, he's a boxer.
Yeah.
And George has dealt with boxers for so many years. And he knows the weaknesses and strengths of boxing. He'll avoid the strengths. He'll attack the weaknesses. And Khabib does kick, but his kicking ability is nowhere near the George's level. George's been kicking since he's 6 years old. He's going to squeeze those kicks in here and there, and that's going to make the world of a difference.
So we've seen George, and we've got a couple more, yeah. So we've seen George fight at lightweight, welterweight, and of course middleweight when he came and made easy work of Bisping, in my opinion.
Well, round 2 was scary. Round 2 was pretty scary.
And Anderson Silva and George St. Pierre at middleweight.
You know what?
And George St. Pierre is a big man.
He's a big man, but you know what? At that time, one thing we didn't know is what Chael exposed about Anderson Silva.
Right.
That he's not so hard to take down. And
Which fight? The first or second?
the first one.
Okay.
First one.
The first one was like an eye opener.
Yeah.
Like we're like, wow, like where's his takedown defense? And his grappling wasn't so impressive. So then we were like, really like, this is the time to fight him, you know. But then he had the whole rematch thing we didn't know that about him at that time. And at that time, it was too risky to go from welterweight to middleweight because maybe you can't go back down to like welterweight. To welterweight. BJ Penn, when he went up to welterweight to fight George, he went from lightweight to welterweight. He didn't seem right again when he went back down. Because once you let your body go and you start adding more calories, you add more muscle, and then you got to go fit into that smaller weight class, we were scared that it'll damage George's ability to cut to 170. Maybe his body's going to morph. And that's what old time boxers would tell us. And we know fighters back in the day, when they went up a weight class, they were never the same when they tried to come back down, because you can't help but let your body go a little bit because you want to be bigger because you're fighting a bigger guy. I think that was always a scare. But if we knew
that he was able to make it
at that time, his takedown defense was the way it was, it would be a risk worth going and staying smaller. Like don't put on the weight. Just go there at a normal weight, 185, because George St. Pierre's skills for takedowns are just as good as Chael's or better. And for sure, George's jiu-jitsu is way better. George is a highly seasoned fighter on the ground. So when I saw that fight, I was like, look, this is a good fight for GSP. But we didn't know that back then. It was just too many.
Okay.
So it was too risky.
So you'd give it to George?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, last one.
This is an important one.
This is an important one. Okay, we accept the last one for you
Oh boy.
versus Amanda Nunes.
So basically, there's no right answer here. You put me in a position. There's no right answer. Listen, I'm not a fighter, so I can't put myself in that situation.
But if you had to make a
Listen. I'm gonna bow out of this one. I'm gonna say Amanda Nunes. Give it to her. Let me say
Amanda, okay.
She's too good.
I think she should give us a lot of us a hiding. A lot of us a hiding.
Even if you had to do a citizen arrest, we should know
Oh
you.
boy.
Okay. Any more?
I thought I'd leave it on that one.
Good matchups. Good lineups we put together.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good.
Wicked. Look, Brother Firas, it's an honor to have you here, my brother. And with your experience with GSP and Rory McDonald, and there's a few things that you mentioned about weight cutting, right? And Robert Whittaker especially. What would happen to a normal human being, right, who's not an elite sportsman or an athlete, if we attempted that kind of weight cut? What does that kind of weight cutting involve? What does it entail?
Well, it's mostly considered. Well, first, they want to cut carbohydrates. When you cut carbohydrates like breads, pasta, quinoa, potatoes, you start eliminating glycogen in your muscle. Your your glycogen is stored 1 part glycogen, 3 parts water. So if you stop eating carbs, you'll lose easily about 7 pounds of liquid. Okay, minerals, liquid. And so that's what they do. They cut their carbs, so they're going to eat more like vegetables and proteins. Then they'll also do a water load. They'll be drinking a lot of water. So they'll drink like 6 liters of water a day.
Wow.
And then leading up to the weigh-in, they'll kind of cut it out. So what happens when you drink a lot of water, your body starts to urinate a lot. Obviously, you start flushing. Your body's flushing. You're actually dehydrating yourself because you'll go from 6 liters to 4 liters to 3 liters to 2 liters to 1 liter. And then you stop drinking, but your body was still flushing out. At least that's the narrative that they tell us. But it works, definitely. When you do the water load, You see guys lose weight. We cut the salt. Salt obviously retains water, but that's only at the end, like the last 2 days, let's say. We'll really minimize the salt. And then what happens? You'll have somebody lose 15 pounds, 20 pounds even. You know, we might even make them exercise a little bit and then have a very, very small meal. But this is all temporary weight loss, very temporary. So you'll see them all shredded on the way. But this is after they rehydrate, back to normal. You know, you're putting all that back in. So maybe there is some fat loss, but it's very minute. It's very small. You could lose maybe a pound of fat in a week. Let's say in 5 weeks you lost 5 pounds. It's possible. It's very possible. If you're very overweight, it could be even more. But let's say you're athlete, losing 1 pound of fat in a week is a lot. So yes, they'll lose 20 pounds, but it's not fat. It's just liquid, and it's not true weight loss.
Can a non-athlete attempt that kind of
Yeah,
workout?
you can do it. I mean, people do it for weddings. People do it for special. They can do it.
People do cuts for weddings.
Absolutely. People
Some
do
dedicated
that.
groups.
Yeah, they want to look good for their photo shoot, their movie
That is,
scene.
I do.
Believe me, people do it. But it's temporary weight loss. The best weight loss for somebody who's not fighting in a particular weight class is to actually have true weight loss.
Now, in terms of like, obviously, there's loads of myths around different kind of diets, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I met you out there in Abu Dhabi, I kept asking you about keto because I was on keto myself. My brother got me on keto, and you said some positive things about keto. Is it a diet that you'd recommend?
I find like people, when it comes to the diet community, they're so like dogmatic. My diet is great. Your diet is no good.
Yeah, it becomes
It's
like
like, dude, it all
yours, yeah.
works. If you give me a diet and I actually follow the rules, it'll work.
All
These
of
people,
them?
These people, yeah, not all of them. Let's say
A good one.
say any diet.
The
that's-
Atkins work.
The Atkins will work. Ketogenics will work. Joel Furman's diet will work. Dolce diet will work. George Lockhart's diet will work. They all work. Is one better than the other? I think it comes down to a lifestyle. Intermittent fasting works. I've seen so many people tell me when they see me, you lost weight. I'm like, I don't know, like gaining weight, losing. Every time I see somebody I haven't seen it, they tell me I lost or I gained. Like, I don't know, I lost track. But here's the truth. If you can follow the rules, but don't follow any diet. Okay, I don't like fad diets. Follow somebody who's really respected in their field. They have a track record. Look at their diet. Ask yourself, does this fit my lifestyle? That's the diet you're more likely to succeed with. Like, for instance, I like intermittent fasting. It fits my lifestyle.
16
I like to
hours.
eat from 10 to 6.
16 hours.
Yeah. I like to eat from 10 to 6. I have about an 8-hour eating window. If I want to lean up a little more, I eat from 10 to 3. That really works for my lifestyle. Why? Because I'm super busy. And at night when I finish training, I just drink water and I go to bed. I feel good like that. I eat whole foods as much as I can. I eat every few hours and I try to keep my blood sugar level. I follow a lot of what the Dolce diet does, which I love very much. These things work with my lifestyle. I'm so busy that I like to only eat in a small window. I eat in an 8-hour window and then I fast for 16 hours. For me, perfect. Will it work for you? Yes, it will if you follow the rules. Will ketogenics work for you? Yes. With that said, every diet also has its pros and cons. So you have to look at the pros and cons and say, hey, what are my goals? So for instance, if I was a professional athlete, I wouldn't do intermittent fasting all the time because I find it hurts a little bit the recovery. If you're going to train hard like a pro, you need to eat, you need to fuel every few hours.
Yeah.
So it depends your goal. Look, I'm not a professional fighter. So I'm going to do intermittent fasting because it saves me a lot of hours in the day. I have one less meal to worry about. I'm super busy. I have emails to write. I have phone calls to make. So it just frees up my time. Ketogenic is great, but not for me because I love carbs. I enjoy eating carbs.
And bro, I struggled before. You know, when I'm on keto, I struggled before workouts. Big time.
Sure.
I feel
Sure.
weak.
If you want to perform in a glycogenic sport, so look, let's make it really simple. You have two forms of energy. You have more, but I'm going to cut it into two. You have an energy system for intense exercise and an energy system for mild exercise. So if you're jogging really slow, you can use fats for energy and you'll feel fine. It's not a glycogenic sport.
Weightlifting.
Weightlifting is a glycogenic sport. You need that carbohydrate, high intensity fuel. If you're playing soccer, that's glycogenic. If you're playing basketball, if you're doing jiu-jitsu, if you're wrestling, if you're a sprinter, you need glycogen. So if you tell me you're not eating carbs, and then we're going to go on the track and field, we're going to do a 400-meter race, well, guess what? You're going to underperform. You're not going to perform at your best, because now you're going with no glycogen in a glycogenic sport. So there are solutions to that. Keto practitioners will say, look, but we eat our glycogen, we time it 2 to 3 hours before activity. Fine, if that fits your lifestyle, do it. Me personally, I don't like to only eat carbs right before I train. I've done it in the past. It works. So here's what I have to say. Find a diet expert who has a track record. Examine his diet. Does it fit my lifestyle? Am I motivated to eat this way? Listen, for a while I was a raw foodist. I would eat only raw foods.
Yeah.
Why? I wanted to experiment. I was actually enjoying it.
How did that work out?
I felt amazing. I felt great. I would only eat raw foods. I felt amazing. I lost weight. I was healthy. Energy was super high. I felt amazing.
You didn't have raw chicken, did you?
No, because you wouldn't feel amazing after that.
No, you're not gonna feel amazing.
Salmonella doesn't make you feel amazing.
No, I don't think it does.
No.
I don't think
Can't really get chicken medium rare.
But you felt good.
You know what? Some people eat chicken tartare.
Yeah?
Believe it or not.
Serious?
I've seen it.
Might be the last meal.
Yeah, maybe the last meal.
You felt good.
I felt really good, but after 6 months, I don't know what it was. Maybe I was missing something. I started craving warm food, cooked food. I started craving it. And at one point, I started eating cooked food again. And you know what? I told myself, you know what? It worked really well for 6 months, but something was missing. The level of training that I'm doing, I don't know. We don't have any research to see if that kind of diet will fit a program like what I'm doing. So I didn't think it was right anymore. But I learned the value of raw foods. Like, I still eat more raw food. After that experience, I definitely eat more raw foods today. And I understand their importance after going through that. So if you go on a diet journey and you find after a while it's not right for you, it's not getting you the results, try another one. The best diet is the one you're motivated to do.
Spot on.
It's designed by an expert with a track record, and you're motivated to do it. That's the truth. In my opinion, that's what's going to work best.
Staying on the theme of training, I'm going to refer back to some of the conversation that we had in Abu Dhabi, because I think it's important for the listeners and the viewers. You said something to me in the car when we were driving to the cheese factory.
Yes.
Where we had that low calorie, high protein
no sugar,
cheesecake.
no sugar, no fat,
That's right, yeah.
high protein
Yeah,
cheesecake.
imitation.
all protein.
You said to me, constantly switch up your training. Like, never allow the body to get used to one thing. Right?
Yeah.
So how often does that need to be done? Because you were saying, look, I respect people who do weights. I respect people who do X, Y, and Z. All these, I respect it all, and I do it all. Is that, and how often are you expected to switch it up?
You have two sides of a coin. Okay, so let's say you never, I don't know, let's say you never play tennis. When we take you to a tennis court and we play tennis, you're likely to be sore the next day because you've never done it before. Let's say I take you to the baseball field and I make you practice your pitching, but you've never pitched before. Guess what? The next day your arm's gonna be really sore. Why? Because it's so brand new. That's one side of the coin. If I change my workouts too often, I'm going to be really sore. If I do something too outside of what I'm used to. The flip side of that coin, if I do the same thing all the time, let's say you're a runner. Oh, I'm a runner. I love jogging every day. Okay, well, there are pros and cons to running. If you run all the time, some muscles you're going to use and some muscles you're not using. You can have overuse injuries because running requires stress on the knees and stress on the ankles, stress on the hips. Okay, even if you're running with really good technique, eventually start overusing your joints. Plus, after a while, you plateau because your body's already adapted to running. You really have to do an intense amount of running or a high volume of running to break through that plateau. So we have two sides of the coin. They both have a positive and a negative. If you do something over and over again, the benefit is you don't get as sore, so it's not as uncomfortable. You need to balance. So let's say when I work out, I want to be just before I'm sore. I wake up the next day, I feel like I trained, but I'm not hurting. So I'll give you, for instance.
Do you do weights?
Yeah, sure. I do everything.
How often do you do weights? It changes a lot. So like, for instance, I'll tell you what I did last week. Last week I did
5 rounds of 500 meters on the row machine. 1 minute break. The next day, the day before, I did box squats and pull-ups.
Okay.
The time after that, so I conditioned like 3 to 5 days a week. The time after that, I did bench press and deadlift.
How many sets?
Well, I go intuitive. I feel like I do it intuitively. So maybe I did like 15 sets.
15 sets?
Yeah, sure.
Per exercise, so 15.
No, 15 sets of deadlift, 15 sets of bench press.
Flat?
Yeah.
That's a lot of sets.
Yeah, it's a lot of sets, but I take my time. I'm going heavy for me, and I take my time in between them, and I enjoy it. I'm hanging out with the guys. We finish grappling. So we're just putting extra time in, but we enjoy it. It's not work. It's more of a hangout.
Yeah.
But you're still doing work.
Of course.
And okay, so then the workout after that, maybe I'll do 400-meter sprints. Like I'm running now. But I've sprinted before. I've rowed before. I'm slowly adding these things into my repertoire. And every time I flip them around, I'm giving my body a new stimulus. I'm breaking through plateaus. Now, the beauty of it is you can kind of mix and match them as well. And you can kind of keep your body guessing. But if I do something new, like let's say I do an exercise I've never done before. Let's say I'm doing a back bridge. If it's new, I'm introducing it into my toolbox here of new exercises I can use.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a very mild amount because I've never done that before. So I'm going to go half the weight I think I can do and half the reps and half the sets I normally do. And I'll see the next day, hey, am I really sore?
You wouldn't go in hard?
What's that?
You wouldn't go
No,
in hard?
I'll never do a new exercise hard. Never.
80%?
No, like 50.
Okay.
Like sometimes, like when we do gymnastics,
You get accustomed to it.
There's a new movement. Okay. If it's really, really new, I'm not doing it hard. I'm just going to kind of throw a jab out there and see. Because the thing is, like, after years of training, you realize that if you go in the gym and you make yourself horrendously sore, it doesn't help your training because you can't train for a few days now. And so I'm actually putting the brakes on my training. So, and plus I'm flirting with injury. Why would I do that? If your body's achingly sore the next day, it's because you really pushed the body to a limit where there could have been a failure in one of your systems, your knees, your hips. You could have injured yourself. So there should never be a crazy amount of soreness. And yeah, we see the pros training really, really hard, but they built that level over the years. If you try to do an elite athlete's workout, but you never trained before, I guarantee you go to the hospital.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel like I'm going to the hospital.
You're just talking.
Just hearing it. Just like I thought you were proposing it. You're scared.
As mixed martial arts is continuously evolving, and you said it yourself earlier on in the podcast, that if we were to take Matt Hughes of then and put him against some of the youngsters now, he'd struggle because it's constantly evolving. Why has contact sports such as the more kind of traditional types, like what we grew up, taekwondo, tang soo do, karate, why have they lost their kind of relevance? Because those gyms are shutting down now.
Or would you say they have lost their relevance?
I would say they have.
Yeah.
Personally, listen, I know a lot of people, sometimes when I say that, they get really upset and they start
Or
writing.
Wing Chun?
Here's the thing.
You hear that, Hamza? Wing Chun.
Here's the thing. It's theoretical.
But they are dying out in the UK. Those gyms are shutting down.
Absolutely.
They're shutting down.
There was a generation of people that we knew that used to have different colored belts.
Yeah.
Look, I like what Fred Hatfield said. What he said. He said, "Look, there's good, better, and best. Something could be good, but there's something out there that's better than that. And then that better thing is good, but there's also something that's the best we know. As far as we know about exercise science and combat, this is the best. We've tested it. Wing Chun is good. It's just that other arts are better." And there's some arts that are the best. That's all. It's not bad. Like if two guys fought, one guy did Wing Chun, one guy didn't do nothing. The guy with Wing Chun is gonna mop the floor with the guy who doesn't train. No problem.
So someone who does Wing Chun and wrestling isn't the most complete fighter out there.
I would say no, because it hasn't been proven on the field. It just hasn't been proven. Somebody would have to come and
to qualify it.
And it couldn't be just one guy. It would have to be a whole team of guys that came from that background, because one guy could be special in some way that we don't know.
So why has Taekwondo and Tang Soo Do, and they've kind of like, I'm going to use my words wisely because I don't want to offend my good friends and those guys who are still out there practicing, and even Wing Chun. But why has kickboxing and Muay Thai, how has that remained relevant?
Because the champions use these sports. The elite of MMA.
I mean,
They use
Anthony
boxing. They use Muay Thai.
Pettis, yeah.
They use even Taekwondo kicks. Like
Yeah.
like Anthony Pettis has a Taekwondo background.
He's
He
like
was
a-
world champion, and
like
he
third
used a lot
dan
of kicks from Taekwondo.
Okay. Besides
But
Pettis and Machida, who else?
No,
does?
there are plenty of guys with Taekwondo backgrounds. Like for instance,
right.
George has a karate background. Karate is very similar to Taekwondo in many ways. They use very similar kicks, but his karate is rooted in some ways in his wrestling and boxing, because the thing is, Taekwondo kicks leave you susceptible to takedowns.
Of course.
So if you don't know how to handle yourself on the ground, you're going to be scared to kick because the guy's going to grab your leg and put you on your back. But a guy who's really good wrestling, really good jiu-jitsu, he's going to kick, and those kicks will start to work. So there are guys that use Taekwondo kicks in MMA all the time, and they work.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he has a Taekwondo training.
For instance, Ryan Hall, for instance,
Yeah.
he just really, he uses his kicks immensely well. And those are Taekwondo, karate kicks. You can label them Taekwondo, karate. I mean, they use similar techniques.
Sure.
It's a question. It's more of a rule set. So when you say karate and Taekwondo, it's more of a rule set. The rules are different when they compete, but they all have side kick. They all have back kick. They all have, and there's variations in the style of kicking, but they're still very similar in the same way. So the Taekwondo guys, when they first went into MMA, a lot of them lost because they didn't know how to wrestle and grapple. It wasn't that Taekwondo the problem.
What about capoeira? Do you think they reckon there's
There are some tough capoeira guys in MMA.
Yeah.
However, they haven't reached the highest level. And so why? Because I feel like capoeira is great. However, it costs so much energy. So we've had guys do amazing capoeira kicks in MMA. It has happened. It has worked.
Yeah.
Just it costs so much energy that if they don't get the knockout in round 1 or round 1.5, let's say, they're going to lose.
They've expelled a lot of energy.
When you get to the high level, they know you do that. If you don't catch them by surprise, they're going to stay away from it.
Firas, I want to get something off my chest. Every time I attend a UFC event, I'm ridden with guilt.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Why?
It's like a dirty hidden secret for me. I swear down. I mean,
what was the first live one we went to? It was the main
fight night on Bisping vs Silva.
Yeah, the main event in 02.
That was the first UFC fight we went to. It's just I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes when I reflect, especially after the whole Khabib and McGregor and how it's literally the Muslim fellowship of UFC has multiplied by 3, 4, 5-fold. Like everyone is.
It's become another school of thought.
Like they've forgotten the old days. Yeah, they've forgotten the old days. The Shamrock and Tito Ortiz beef and the Tank Abbott days
and your Matt Hughes,
the Bravo
Rampage
challenge.
Jacksons.
Can you just give me a ruling to say that a fatwa that it's okay to attend UFC fights, please?
Well, I don't know of any fatwa that it's okay to attend UFC fights.
Okay, look, what's happening now is more and more young Muslim men who are clearly Khabib fans because after Khabib's victory of McGregor, so many wrestling gyms opened up. There was about 30 within a month just in the south of England, right?
And there's 2 popular ones in Bedford.
2 very popular ones,
which is our hometown.
Rising Crane and what's the other one?
And Kraken.
Now, with that comes an urgency to want to attend UFC events. And besides the whole kind of ruling behind strike in the face, as per the hadith, which is usually cited, there's also other things which I guess crosses over with boxing fights as well. The ring girls, the consumption of alcohol, sponsors, even just the general environment,
the peripheries.
Yeah, and I'm having this conversation more and more often. In fact, it's a massive social media debate amongst Muslims. This is one of the biggest debates that's happening right now.
Yeah, it's actually
is attending MMA fights because boxing. Okay, fine. Okay, but boxing wasn't really a thing. I mean, we've got Amir Khan in the UK.
And then before that, you had Naseem Hamid.
But they were never as big as Khabib, right? But now that Khabib's come into scene, someone who's unreservedly, unapologetically Muslim, right? And he wears it on his sleeve, and he's instilled some level of izzah and ghira.
The first thing he says when he wins is Alhamdulillah, and he makes sajda and all these things.
And we know the lifestyle he's lived in Dagestan and all that. There's a massive debate now. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? Should we promote it? Should we tell people we're there? Should we keep it a secret? Is it a dirty secret? Ya Allah, forgive me for attending this, but what a bad boy fight it was.
But no one will at Khabib though, because they don't want to get, you know,
The location.
they don't want to get yeah.
But it is. Is there any advice that you can give to young, passionate Muslims who are constantly debating this issue? Without giving a ruling, of course, even though I would like you to give a ruling.
No. I mean, I'm not. No, I couldn't do that. Listen, I'm not a expert in Islamic law. Okay, but here's what I have to say, and I hope any mufti listening to this will consider it at least. We should never let somebody know something and us not pursue it and learn it for ourselves and know it. We have to know it. There's nothing you shouldn't know. Nothing useful. You shouldn't know everything about it. So my intention when I train, my intention when I watch fights is to learn. How do I defend myself? That's my only goal. I make a living from it, so I can go even further in this science.
Yeah. But you can do that without competing for us.
How so?
You can train to an optimum level at the gym. Oh God, I feel a slapping down coming down. But you can train.
You're
to
gonna get one.
Yeah.
You're gonna get one.
You can finish it
You're
off
about
now.
to step outside.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if the cameras can come. I
No.
competed. You didn't. Let's see.
You train at an optimum level,
Sir?
so you as a Muslim can train with GSP as much as you want or Rory as much as you want, and not have to go and compete
Okay.
and make money off it and get lots of Instagram followers.
Let me
from
give
it.
you an example. Okay. Let me give you an example. I'm gonna give you a book. Okay. You're gonna read the book.
Okay.
It's a book on swimming. This is a Bruce Lee example.
I don't know how to swim.
But the book's gonna tell you how to swim. You
Okay.
move your arm like this, and you go like this, and the book is telling you everything about swimming. And then one day,
You're in the ocean.
I push you in the deepest, darkest ocean, and the waves are not friendly this day.
I'll die.
You're gonna die.
Won't you come and save me?
Bruce Lee said, "Look, you want to learn to swim? You got to get in the water." There are so many things you think are theoretically, but then when you get in the water, it's totally different. Like I'll tell you, for instance, okay, we don't know that when you get into the fight, because it's a real fight, and people are watching, and you're under the lights, there's a heavy psychological element at play between the two fighters. We didn't know that until we actually went and competed.
Sure.
Now that's become a science. So if you're training in your little dojo and you think you know you're doing exactly what those guys are doing, you're wrong. I'm here to tell you. And that's why I would appeal to the muftis, because they don't know, because they haven't been there. That's why I try to communicate to that to them, is that it's very different.
You can't reproduce that
You
environment.
can't reduce it. We have to actually try it for real. And when the punches are real and the chips are down for real, it's different. And for me to explain it to you is very difficult unless you've been in that environment. So you think everything is right, but when you're standing across from one another and then now it's real, it's totally different. Okay? So there is an element, there's something there you're not gonna know until we put you in there. Okay? So in my opinion, I've been through it. I understand what it is. It's hard to communicate, but believe me, there's something to actually going in the arena, into the testing field and doing it for real. There's something else. There's something to learn. Khabib shut McGregor up. You know what? Alhamdulillah that he did. I'm not gonna go into the details of why, but if somebody, there's a point where you have to stand up.
That wasn't a normal
And
fight.
Khabib can stand up. Why? And he can stand up for all of us. Why? Because he paid the price. He went in there and he learned something we don't know. That's something that should, in my opinion, as a recommendation, we shouldn't leave on the table. Young kids should learn to wrestle. They should learn to spar. They should learn to defend themselves. And yeah, you don't have to take it to that level. I'm not saying it's for everybody. But we should have a handful of those who feel inclined to. They should go out and try, because they're going to be able to teach us. They're going to be at the forefront. Now, we need everybody in every field. In my opinion, we need people in every field. Math, science, philosophy, even art, everything. And combat sports, for sure we should have experts in combat sports. And not knowledgeable people in combat sports, experts in combat sports at the highest level.
Champions.
We should. We're not always going to have the champions, but we should have champions. Why?
But we've got you for philosophy. I don't want you to get hurt.
Listen, I'll try to keep this brain intact, but I can't promise the CTE is going to catch up to me sometime soon.
Alhamdulillah.
But you know what I mean? And look, they're inspiring a generation. That's the truth. Muhammad Ali inspired a generation. Khabib is inspiring a generation.
Why? Why is Khabib, of all the fighters, and there's other Muslim sportsmen out there, there's other Muslim athletes.
You know, we talk about Khabib, right? And we talk about the popularity that's come with Khabib's success. May Allah give him more success than other fighters like him who are Muslim, success in whatever they're doing. And since we're talking about MMA and combat sports in that field specifically, Khabib, you know, there's brothers that we know, right? And probably you yourself as well, and all across the world, who most definitely from our experience don't have any combat background. Many don't even train or exercise. Are not even wouldn't even consider themselves probably practicing Muslims or even pray salah and things like that. But they lean to Khabib. They identify with Khabib. And you know, that's something which is special. And
it is.
And but that could be because of a lack of role models and confident role models. Because there is a genuine leadership crisis within the ummah.
Yeah, of course, I understand that.
So they tend to navigate towards anyone who remotely confidently portrays Islam. Would you say that's one of the reasons why so many Muslims, I mean millions, are inclined towards Khabib? Like his Instagram following went from like 3.5 million to 12 million within a week. Majority of them being Muslims. And like everyone's a Muslim. Like your local drug dealer's a Khabib fan, your local gangster's a Khabib fan, the local takeaway owner's a Khabib fan, the local taxi driver's a Khabib fan.
I think this fame and influence is a fitna. And I think Khabib's doing a good job, to be honest with you. I'm not here to judge, but I think he's doing a good job, Khabib.
Alhamdulillah.
And inshallah, that inspiration that he's ignited will lead to something good. It could lead to something bad. It's a fitna. Some people are gonna take that inspiration. Some people are gonna turn into something bad, and some people are gonna turn into something good, and that's their fitna. Which way is it gonna go? I can't tell you, but it's gonna be at each individual, you know. Because look, at the end of the day, Khabib has inspired the Muslim people to come together and rally around him. It's a beautiful thing,
without a doubt.
But what's the intention at the end of the day? At the intention, when he wins, he says Alhamdulillah. He doesn't take victory for him. He's not about himself. He's a very humble human being. I've met him personally. The guy's an incredibly humble human being. When he was fighting for his title fight in New York, I saw him walk in. He was going to his weigh-in. He's a very busy guy. You know, he's fighting for what title? I stood out of the way because I don't want to get in the way of his entourage. I know what it's like to move around with so many people. He saw me at a distance. He came by and shook my hand and sat there and talked to me for a few minutes. And I know he's got a lot of people waiting for him. He went and he shook my hand, showed the respect, and he talked to me. We chatted a little bit, friendly. I wished him all the best for his fight. He's a true gentleman, a very good human being. He's using his influence for something positive. We're going to have a generation of Muslims that can defend themselves. I think that's a good thing. And the reason why is because one of us went to the highest level.
And inspired.
And he did it. And now we're going to have a generation of Muslims who are going to be able to defend themselves, have true confidence. You know, it's good. It's a good thing. In my opinion, again, who am I? I think all the hadiths about hitting somebody in the face, that's reference to altercations or punishment. Don't punish somebody by slapping them or hitting them. Don't settle an altercation by going that far. I get that. But I don't see a fight
as being malicious.
As being an altercation.
Yeah.
It's not an altercation. We're trying to best ourselves. Now, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's a fighter, but there are people who are born with an instinct for war or fight or defense. You know, they have this predisposition to compete, to do something. They have, they're young men. I think it's a safe environment and a good environment for them to exercise that. But the benefit is learning how to defend ourselves for real, not something that's maybe gonna work. We're not sure because it's not truly tested. You understand? That's why for me, martial arts it has to be real.
So, given that, I think it's undeniable to say that, and I'm confident he says that Khabib's Islamic character, and that's what it is. The very fact that he'll go to Africa after a massive victory, build wells. He constantly reminding people about respecting parents, praising Allah, and all of these things.
Straight after the fight with Dustin, what did he say? He goes, "This is what MMA is about. It's about respect.
And
it's not about trash talk
and reflecting this, right? Would you then say, as someone who studied philosophy, right? Do you see a link between training MMA, your lifestyle, and the spiritual aspect of yourself in line with Islam? Do you see this all integrated? Do you see them as two separate things?
I think it boils down to excellence. Everything you do, you have to do it at the highest level, excellent. You know, this is hadith as well. Everything you do it amazingly, perfectly.
Ihsan.
Why would I do it? Why would I do something wrong? Because I'm lazy. I think doing something wrong costs more energy. Because then you have to redo it, or you have to live with the consequence. And living with the consequence of doing something wrong, I'd rather do it right. And I think people who do things wrong or they're lazy, they don't understand. They don't see the potential in themselves. You have massive amounts of potential. God gave you this massive amount of potential. Why aren't you using it? Why aren't you using it?
I'm trying.
I'm scared.
The truth of the matter is, we can do more than we do. And if we exploit our potential, we could do something good for the ummah.
Inshallah.
So there is. Are you then saying, like, for the lay people that, and we've barely touched the surface with Brother Firas's philosophical depth. So are you saying it is linked, deen, spirituality, and training?
I would say yes, because if your deen says do things perfectly, then you should carry that in everything. Everything should be done perfectly.
Spot on.
If you do your prayers 5 times a day, that means you're highly disciplined. You're always aware of the clock. You're a finely tuned human being. You're always aware. You're not just lazing around. No. So why can't you make your academics like that? Why can't you make your training like that? Why can't everything be almost like you're in the military?
You can transfer it.
Yeah. If you can wake up for Fajr, if you can do that, you can do anything. Like, the people write books about the benefits of waking up early. Successful people wake up early.
Sure.
There are many books written on people who wake up early, the benefits. One benefit is there's no disruption. You're at the highest level of energy you can have throughout the whole day. Khalas, you just woke up. Your body's just fresh right now. There's no phone calls. There's no emails. There's no disruptions. The early bird gets the worm is a popular
it is indeed.
Adage.
Yeah.
There's so much wisdom in that. If you could do that, why haven't you exploited your potential? Everybody has potential for something. Exploit that potential. Do something good. And I don't see how I feel that's very satisfactory in itself as well. You know, just, it feels good to exploit your potential and do something good for others. You know, that's why I say I think Khabib did that. You know, I'm sure he's had a lot of sacrifice to get to where he is. I can't imagine. You know.
Sure.
And he's doing something good for the ummah. That's what I love best about him. He's winning for everybody.
He is.
Feels
that way.
He's doing something really positive. And he's bringing a lot of young kids together and giving them something to get interested about.
You told me that one time you were driving to the gym with your sons, and generally there's a moment of silence, or you try to instill silence.
Well, when we drive to the gym, it's silent in the car.
And one of your sons, was it the younger one, who asked you, Baba, everything came from something.
Yes.
And everything will be okay.
Everything will be okay.
How did you come?
Well, on his own, just reflecting. Thinking.
Amazing.
And I watch him in the review. I see he's thinking. And wallah, you know, this is an Islamic concept. Everything comes from something. Everything comes from Allah.
That's right.
And everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fair and just.
Allah is just. That's right.
This is what Islam says, right?
Full on.
You think you got away with that murder? You think you got away with this sin? No. It's going to be made just.
That's right.
And he's telling me upon his own reflection, you know what? Things are going to be good. Things are going to be fair. Things are going to end up good. And that's a fitrah. But when we're listening to music or we're watching movies and we're eating and we're drinking, we're wrestling, we're doing all the activities we love to do. You never sit with that fitrah. You never sit alone. And there's a lot of great things that happen with the mind if you give it quiet.
And you said someone who doesn't like quietness tends to be, or an indication that their anxiety with the reality of death, or a dislike of thinking about these things.
Well, so
that's quite interesting.
Take for instance, some people, they're constantly on their phone. They constantly need
some type of stimulus. Yeah.
Stimulus. Why? If you put them in a room alone with no entertainment, just alone, not starving. I'm not saying you're putting them in a torture chamber. They're just alone, quietly. They're either gonna fall asleep so they can escape their solitude. They can't be in solitude at all. Why? The question is why? Well, if you're in solitude, and you don't fall asleep, let's say you stay awake, something's very special is going to happen. That's why you see a lot of people when they go to jail, all of a sudden they completely transform.
They fix up.
Not all of them. Some
Many.
become worse.
Yeah.
Some become way better. But there's a transformation either way.
Of course.
Solitude will bring something outside of you. There's something that's inside will bring it out.
I think about death the most when I'm alone.
Sure, absolutely.
Like, if someone said to me, when do you think about death and akhirah the most? It's when I'm alone and usually in bed
Sure.
with the lights off.
Death is the elephant in the room.
That's right.
In the West, we sugarcoat it. Oh, he passed on. No, he died. He didn't pass on. He died. Say it. Like people say it, they massage it. Me, I expect to die. Like my kids, they ask me, "Are we gonna die?" Yeah, I say, "Yeah, we're gonna die. Of course, we're gonna die." But I make my peace with death. But I also don't believe death is the end. That's why I can have peace with death. But some people, they're so scared of death, they don't even want to talk about the topic. It's always brushed aside.
Oh, yeah.
Don't talk. It's in the West, the way we deal with it is, look, it's gonna happen a really long time from now.
Yeah.
So forget about it. Listen to this podcast. Watch this movie.
Yeah. Listen to this
listen to it.
listen to this podcast and then die afterwards, okay? Don't die yet. Listen to it, then die, please.
And I think you have to deal with that issue. Like my youngest son went through it very recently. His grandfather died. His great-grandfather died on his mother's side. And when we sat them down to tell him about it, he started crying right away because he knew his grandfather was sick. His great-grandfather was sick. He knew he was sick. So right when I said, "Hey man," so I sit down. He doesn't want to talk to you. Right away he started crying. And he said to me, I said to him, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Because I know he died." I said, "Yeah, you're right, he died." I said, "Why are you crying though? He died, but why are you crying?" He said, "Because I'll never see him again." And I said to him, "How do you know this?" Because he didn't have an answer. I asked him, "How did you meet him the first time? Where did you come from?" And he looked at me and I said, "Where were you before you were born?" I said, "Wherever you were, when you die, the same way you came the first time, you're going to come again." He changed completely. I said, "The way you met him the first time, inshallah, say inshallah, you'll meet him again."
Sure.
And you don't know. Why? Who told you you're never going to see him again? Who told you this? Where did you know? When I cross-examined him, khalas, he shook his, and he calmed down and they eased him. I said, "Nobody can tell you you're never going to see him again. You saw him the first time, yeah? Me, in my opinion, proof of this world is proof of another world, the next world.
So.
If I was born now, I'm going to be born again. If, it is a cyclical argument. It's in the Quran. How is Allah going to raise us up? The way He did it the first time.
Exactly.
This is beyond logic, beyond Euclidean geometry, beyond your scientific scope. But it happened. How it happened, Allahu Alam, but it happened. That's how I see it.
Bringing the podcast to a kind of a close, one of the challenges that Muslim parents, and even parents from the Jewish and Christian backgrounds as well, that they're experiencing now, is this surge of normalization of LGBT curriculum. Children being told that, look, we live in a secular liberal society.
So.
I was up against Piers Morgan not too long ago, and he asked me, "Do you believe someone who engages in homosexual acts is sinful?" I go, "Well, of course, yes. From my faith point, of course.
Yeah.
But we live in a liberal society. I'm not inciting violence or hatred, and we can live in peace whilst differing quite clearly."
Yeah.
But what's happening now is that children as young as 4 and 5 are being taught, not from a morally neutral point of view, by the way. They're being told that, look, Amina, look, Abdullah, if you want to identify as a girl, it's okay. If you want to identify as a boy, it's okay. If you don't want to identify neither a male or a female, it's okay. If you decide to be gay, it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, it's okay. And that's not morally neutral. What advice would you give parents, especially Muslim, Christian, Jewish parents who are experiencing this now? And one could argue that, look, this is expected. You're living in a secular liberal society. But one would counter that it's not being taught from a morally neutral point of view, like the way we taught religion in school. It's morally neutral. Whereas this is now being kind of proselytized. How do Muslim parents overcome this massive challenge? Massive.
I'm going to give you guys a little bit of harsh medicine.
Go on.
The reason why it's a problem is because of the Muslims. We don't teach our kids how to understand our deen through a scope of reason. You can take my sons and tell them why being homosexual is good and okay and this, they're going to disagree with you. Not because I beat them with a stick, but because I reasoned with them.
Did you arm wrestle? Did you shoot them back? Did you?
I pinched them a little.
You got him in a Kimura.
The truth, listen. When you're born in a family, mom, dad, brother, sister, there's something very special.
How are you supposed to rationally teach a 4-year-old? They're 4-year-old.
Kid. From the age of 2, the kids can start to reason. From the age of 2. Slowly, you reason step by step, slowly, gently. And I tell them sometimes, when you get older, you'll understand this more. But
Child development milestones
I
is not
dialogue with my kids all the time. Very important dialogue.
Have you had this dialogue with them?
Absolutely.
How did it
About
go down?
the LGBT movement?
How did it go down?
Absolutely. Very well. Very well. I told my kids how my father sacrificed his life for me to go to school, to have a better life. That's what he did. My father sacrificed his whole life to push up. My dad was not educated. But I'll tell you something. There was no way his kids were not going to be educated. Impossible. He made it impossible for me to fail.
Alhamdulillah. Allah bless you.
Alhamdulillah.
Ameen.
Now when I succeeded, I realized why he did that. But also I had a mom, a dad, brothers, and we had a lot of love in our family. This experience of having a love from your mom and your dad is something very unique. You can't get. The family unit is something very special. There's Allah and then there's the family unit is the second most important thing. This family unit, my kids are experiencing it. And I'm telling them I sacrifice for them. And I'm expecting them to do the same thing. And they're going to want to do it. Why? Because they felt what it is to have mom, dad, brother, sister. We take care of each other. And we have this special experience. And look, if you were born a child and you are abandoned, you might not know that. You might not understand that.
Exactly.
People who get into the sex industry were often abused as children.
Yeah, spot on.
Listen, that's the truth. A lot of them were abused, so they didn't have this love. So for me, the number one thing is first have a strong family bond. Me and my family, we spend a lot of time together. We share in a lot of activities. We have common interests. And I want them to desire to replicate that. You cannot replicate that if you're homosexual. So in my opinion, they're going to want to replicate that. So they're going to be attracted to the opposite sex. Because for me, I tell my sons, if our forefather, let's say it's genetic. They're going to tell us it's genetic. Okay, well, my father wasn't gay because I wouldn't be here. And his father wasn't gay. 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 Because if they were, we wouldn't be here. I definitely am not gay. I could tell you that 100%. So how could I father gay children?
I'm not gay either.
They're going to tell me, oh,
I'm not gay.
It's something that can change over time. You don't know that. They don't know that. Listen, the truth of the matter is, my kids, I want them to carbon copy what we did for them. I paid the sacrifice for their lives. I want them to pass it forward. The truth of the matter is, if you're gay and it's by your nature and this and that, that's your fitna. I tell my kids, this is not our fitna. We don't have this. We don't have it. In my family, we don't have it. If tomorrow we have it, it's his fitna. Inshallah, he deals with it well.
Inshallah, yeah.
Inshallah, here's the truth of the matter. I tell my kids, look, what's halal is good for the family. What's haram destroys the family. The family is more important than me. When you say, hey, I'm not doing this family thing, that means you put yourself ahead of us. Khalas, you broke our family. One generation supporting the next, and our progeny goes on. You broke away. You said, you know what, I'm doing my lifestyle, my way. Okay, you broke away. That's your choice. When Nuh alayhi salam saw his son running up the hill, what did God tell him? Let him go. That's it, let him go. If my son tomorrow, when he grows up, he's an adult, he wants to do that, let him go. Wallahi, let him go. I won't go on my knees for nobody. But, inshallah, he felt the love, the family unity. He's going to want to replicate it. And if they tell me it could be genetic, wallahi, look at the whole line of Zahabis. Not one of us. How do we get here?
Alhamdulillah.
Recent studies have come out to confirm that
Quite recent.
it cannot be substantiated that there's any genetic basis for homosexuality.
It's actually it's actually nurturing, and
Well, they're going to tell you this. They're going to say, look, when there's overpopulation, high density population, they're going to tell you epigenetics. This is one possible argument I've heard. Let's say, look, your genetics, they're not just fixed the way they are. They can morph to your
they're pliable.
your environment. They're going to say, look, because you're in high dense population, that they theorize. It's a theory. It's not proven. That the homosexual gene might fire, so that way we plateau, the population will plateau. Okay, give me the most rational, give me the most logical argument. I'm still not raising my children to be gay, and I'll tell you why. Because I want my progeny to go on. What's halal is for the family. If you look at every law in Islam, it's to put the family up. It's the nucleus of Islam is the family. So my kids, when they're going to feel that love, that, in my opinion, the love of the family is going to outshine everything. They're going to want to reproduce it. However, if your family is cold and judgmental and harsh, you're going to be like, why the hell would I want to do this? So I can have a kid, we don't talk to each other, we don't know each other. But when you see the family's tight, very close, I think it eliminates all the problems.
That's a really, really, very, very interesting perspective that I don't think a lot of people have ever approached the subject of homosexuality that way. Very practical. Thanks, man.
Explain to us that web. Remember that you had to study that web with some of your peers, and you had to basically jot whenever there was a divorce or a case of domestic violence and what that web indicates.
Yeah, so there is a practice used in it's a systemic practice in social service and social care, and the tool is called a genogram. So a genogram is basically like a family tree, but with more keys and more annotation on things that people have experienced in their life. So it's typically 3 generations, so grandparents, parents, children, and you can just look at it, and if you've used the tool enough, you can see it, and you'll get answers from that poster immediately. And doing this exercise many times as a student, you can see the trends, that the patterns that run through families, threads that go all the way through generations, whether it's sexual exploitation, sexual abuse, drug abuse, substance misuse, domestic violence, divorce, all of that stuff. And a fascinating thing happened once, and I'll make it as brief as possible, during an exercise where I was buddied up with someone, and they did their genogram. They did the personal family one first. You have to get consent whether you're happy to share it with your peer. They did it, and there was all sorts happening. Yeah, there was, dysfunctional family, and there was divorces and all these things, and then it was my turn to do mine. And alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, marriage, no broken lines.
Alhamdulillah.
Marriage,
Alhamdulillah.
no broken line. Marriage, children, married, no alcohol, no drugs, no violence, no nothing. Everyone Muslim, star and credit,
except for Anwar.
Yeah. and there was and the same faith running through, and then a tutor came and said, how did that kind of this exercise feel? And the person said that after seeing Aki's, I feel really embarrassed of my family. And I said, look, you shouldn't feel embarrassed of your family. It's nothing.
No. But
it's not about how you should feel.
It's sad.
But I understand what you mean by that.
Sir.
And I obviously I didn't say it, but I'll say it today in this podcast. The reason why so and so felt embarrassed is because they knew that's what a family should have looked like.
Exactly.
They knew that.
Absolutely.
And if they were able to swap in an ideal world, but still have the same members, of course, they would swap. And it goes back to what you said about how integral family is.
This family is being attacked from all sides now. In the West, it's dying out. Families don't exist no more. Marriage is down and divorce is up. Why? The question is why? They've lost these traditional values. Now, in my opinion, look, you wanna break up the family. You wanna be a guy who just goes on Tinder and finds a different girl every week. That's your business. Me, I don't worry about other people. I worry about me. And I could tell you that to have that family unity is the greatest experience. Number one is Allah. Second greatest experience is family unity. And this family unity only exists when we sacrifice for the unity of this family. This generation now, they've become the selfie generation. My Instagram, my me. I don't want to get pregnant. I have stretch marks. I don't want to have a wife. I'll be tied down. I have all these girls. It's all about me, my profile, my connections, my social network. Yeah. So basically, Your father sacrificed for you. His father sacrificed for you. And if you go back far enough, they went through the plague. They went through the war. They went through famine. They did everything to bring you here. And you're like, oh, finally. Because all parents, we say, I'm going to give my kid a better life. All of us.
Of course.
I'm going to pay the price and he's going to have a better life. Okay, here we are. The generation with the better life. What did we do? Look back 100 generations. They all brought you to here. You have your microphone. You have your lights. You have your airplanes. You did it. Now, what are you going to do with it? You know what? I'm going to end it here with me. I'm not going to have any kids, no family. Everything you guys did, khalas, I'm going to end it. Me, when I think about my family, I think about my kids, my family, and my progeny. All of them. What they did to bring me here, I'm passing it on. I have a debt to pay. I'm going to raise my kids. I'm going to educate them. And inshallah, they continue the progeny. If they don't, wallahi, if they don't, that was out of my control. When I'm in front of Allah, I'm going to say, Allah, I took him, I raised him, I fed him, I loved him, I taught him, and this is what he did.
May Allah bless the Zahabi progeny with many, many generations.
Ameen, Ya Rab. On that note, this wonderful podcast comes to an end, but there is something that I must say to you about every Blood Brothers podcast. We got this inspiration from Khalid bin Walid, radiyallahu anhu. And when he used to go to those lands, and he used to say, Islam, jizya or war. Obviously, I can't do that to you because you're my brother. So what we do is, I'm a bit worried about offering this. It's an arm wrestle or a thumb war, or you have to try this Bangladeshi delicacy. It's called pan and betel nut. Now it's not,
and it's halal according to a lot of shop scholars.
Oh, okay, so we have consensus.
So I don't know. I mean the choice is yours, but it will be very telling of who you are depending on what you choose.
So what are my choices again?
So an arm wrestle with me. I thought, because you can't wrestle my younger brother, because if you hurt him, I'll take a thumb war with him, or you have to try some of this.
Well, I'll take the lesser of the evils. I'll try some of this.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know what I was hoping you'd choose. That's so we could join you.
It's spicy.
No, it's sweet.
Sweet.
Get ready for us.
So what's the consequence of
you're gonna be tripping out of this room. No. We wouldn't do that to you.
No. Oh my god, I think this is gonna.
No. It's nuts. It's nuts, and this red stuff is crushed.
Sweet.
It's crushed rose petal.
Okay.
Sweet. It's like a bit of like
very,
sherbet.
very low calorie.
I thought it was like a killer chili pepper or something.
Nothing. No. It's not like a Spite Hot challenge or anything like that.
Okay.
No.
Frost in one arm wrestled me, bricked it.
Listen, my arms are fragile.
Bricked it.
Yeah, he's done it intermittent fast as well at the moment. Glycogen's low.
True. I have a question
Listen,
for
it's
you.
the first
I have
time
a
he's
question
got-
for you.
Go on.
Give me those three choices Ibn Khalid said.
So obviously, circumstantially, as he went out, he was ordered by the Khulafa, mainly Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that look, go to the people and invite them to Islam.
Okay.
Tell them,
Tell me the three choices.
invite them to Islam.
Yeah.
Tell them to accept,
Mm-hmm.
convey the message.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't,
Mm-hmm.
get them to pay the jizya.
Okay.
And if not, then
Fight.
yes.
Okay.
We are coming, yeah.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes.
Can you point to one civilization with no tax?
Ooh.
I don't know. The early cavemen have tax.
Has there
Oh,
ever
you
been,
mean-
has there ever been a civilization with no tax that
No.
doesn't pay tax?
From someone who's done some level of reading in history, I don't recall.
There is no civilization. If you want civilization, you have to have tax. We haven't reached a level where maybe one day we'll have robots and we won't need tax anymore. Tax equals civilization. So, and from my understanding, it's join Islam, be civilized with us, or fight us.
I love that. That's wicked.
Tax is not give us money. The Sahaba didn't love money.
Yeah.
Of course.
If you read the
No.
biographies, they didn't love money.
What did Khalid bin Walid used to say with regards to the when they used to choose tax?
When
They say, "Woe to you!
woe to you, like
Islam is better."
yeah. Why do you choose jizya? He used to actually say this.
We don't want your money.
Akid. But this is how I understood it. Because if you look at the Arabic Peninsula before Islam, there was no civilization. They were uncivilized and unlettered. After Islam, they were civilized. But there's no civilization that has no tax. So this is how I personally understand it. After cross-examining it, looking at it, it makes sense to me. But again, that's just my opinion.
No, you're right. I know the whole civilization about tax, but I'm glad you
I want to have the honor of presenting it to
Tell
you.
me, how do I eat this?
So
You put it in your mouth and you chew it.
Put it in mouth, one mouth. You will find it bitter. You
No,
may
it's
find
sweet.
it
It's sweet.
one mouth and just chewing it.
And just chew. Don't worry. You're not gonna see double. You're gonna remember our names. Everything's gonna be okay.
What's this called?
Pan.
We call it pan.
So people in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh know this. Pan.
Yeah, he's ready for the arm wrestle.
Alabar, no?
Yeah, we spiked it. For us, it was an absolute pleasure, my brother.
It was an honor, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the
Great
experience.
pleasure. Thank you, Habib.
Brothers and sisters, and that is all for today's episode of the Blood Brothers podcast. Watch us on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment. Doesn't have to be a positive comment, just leave one and like the video. And if you're from North America, there's water there for us. And if you're from North America, if you're from the States and Canada, subscribe to the Mad Mamluks channel. And for audio platforms, you can find us under the Mad Mamluks on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google, Apple, and all of that. And yeah, that's it for all.
Blood brothers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It gets bitter, then sweeter with the water.
Yeah.
Thank you, boys. It was fun.
Blood Brothers podcast. 5 Pillars of Mad Mamluks production.